Welcome to the Success Journey Show. Let's travel together through the lives of individuals on the road to success.
Hey, what's going on, travelers? It's Ricky Venters and Marlon Madden. We are back with you for another episode of the Success Journey Show. What's going on, folks? What's going on? Marlon, what's good, dude? How you doing today?
Doing well. When everybody hears this will probably be past, but it's Memorial Day. I know I have, of course, I have to pay respects to the people that passed on and were before me, paved the way for us. I've had friends that also passed away, military guys due to PTSD, whatever the situation was. So just want to pay my respects on Memorial Day. And also, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm doing well, Well, I'm doing well, man. My back, man. I threw my back out today. I don't know what happened. I have no clue. I woke up this morning perfectly fine, went out on like a 2.5 mile walk, exercising, no problems at all. Got back, started doing some cleaning in the garage, and slowly my back started getting tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. And I was like,
you get no, man.
Why is my back getting tighter? I didn't do anything. I didn't tweak it. I didn't do nothing. I've been exercising. I've been doing this juicing, lost all this weight. I was like, why is my back feeling tight? I'm stretching every single morning. Like I could touch my toes, all that stuff. I'm like,
you need a burger. World? That's what your body's telling you.
Know what it is?
You need a burger.
I just realized what it was.
What?
I was running. I was running on, when was it? Friday at my son's track practice.
Oh, yeah.
And I was trying to get a couple miles in. I said, you know what? I'm going to heavy run all the curves. So every curve, I'll just start, it's taking off. And I completely forgot I was doing that. And I'm sitting here now, like, what did I do differently? And that was it, man. That was it. And I remember my hips were feeling a little tight and everything afterwards. And so
don't stop though.
I'm doing well. Oh no, I can't stop, man.
Don't stop.
I'm moving as fast as I can right now, man.
Yeah, a lot of times those are the deterrents that people use as
I can't do this no more. Yeah.
I can't do this no more, and that's why I don't do this. You just have to find how to fix that. You know, with my knee and everything, and I still this weekend after. Again, I still played ball yesterday, today with the guys. So just got to keep at it and find what works out and keep on playing with different home remedies, doctor prescribed, whatever the situation is to do. I got to give a shout out to Rashad because a lot of times I'm hard on him in terms of his playing in basketball. And then I see a video and I'm like, that man, this kid is fast. And I'm like, yo, Rashad, man, you need to pick it up on the court. Then I look and I'm like, yo, you outran like everybody down the court and took a layup on 5 people.
Yep.
When you handle the ball, it's hard for them to trap you because you're so fast and you could go left or right. You could shoot with your left, you could shoot with your right. Like it's crazy. So of course you want them to just explode. But then, the kids were like, yo, Rashad, man, you had like 10 assists in that game. Man, you're such a good point guard. And I was just listening to them. I was like, oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, they get it. Yeah. They get that a point guard don't have to. They see the value of not just being a scorer, but that. And that brings me to this, Rick.
Oh, you should see some of the clips I got that are coming with him throwing some passes. Oh, yeah.
Oh, word?
We got them all. Yeah, man. We got them, man.
Yeah, the kids were. I didn't even notice that all the assists.
Edited them up. Yeah, Solomon.
Yeah, and he was like, yo, they're just like, yo, you're such a good point guard, Rashad. And I'm like, I'm listening to them and they're like, yeah, man, you just you had like 10 assists in the first half. And I was like, did? Right. So sometimes I see some of the assists, but I'm not watching all of them or what there's or just saying that player saying really that you gave me at the right time at the right spot in order for me to score.
Yeah.
I
almost got kicked out of his game.
Yeah. You almost did.
But good thing I was wearing my Journey wear hoodie, and I was like, I said to the guys, "You don't recognize this right here, this hoodie?" He was like, journey wear, what is that supposed to mean to me? I said, there's only 2 people in the world that have this hoodie. And one of them you see quite often. He's like, what? I said, yeah, Mr. Madden over there. He was like, oh, you with him? I said, yeah, man. Yeah, man. That's my nephew out there playing. He's like, oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Hey, Ricky don't even know, but I got some heat coming for the journey wear. Ricky, you don't even know.
Oh, man.
You don't know. But I got some.
That's your division.
Heat. I got some heat coming for the journey wear that Ricky don't know. I just be ordering stuff. I don't order it on the what I don't want Ricky to know. What I do.
You don't order,
I don't order on the business
company.
Account.
Yeah.
I order from my account. It's all right.
Yeah,
he doesn't know the heat that's coming. He's gonna be like, oh snap. But I was telling you, what I'm gonna tell you. What today I was lifting in my garage and I was just thinking about something. Jokovic, or I hope I'm saying his name right. If he ever decide he wants to come on this podcast, I'm not disrespecting your last name, right? But we'll call you Joker. I'm a basketball player that I'm like, yo, if you're athletic, if you're, you should be superior. That should be what you use as superiority, even if, right? And this guy is not athletic. He's not, and I always say, man, you guys give this guy too much credit. He's garbage. I'll admit it. I'll be like, yo, he's garbage. But he shows like it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be that.
It don't have to be, man. Like it's about scoring, right? And how can you score most efficiently, or not just scoring, but everything else that's included in the game? How can you get it done most efficiently? Like, you don't have to be pretty. It don't have to be like, think about this, right? Sorry, guys, we'll get to the guests in a second, but think about this. Caleb goes, Daddy, Wilt Chamberlain, he scored 100 points in the game, right? I said, yeah. He said that he shoot 3-pointers. I said, nah, there was no 3-pointers back then. He was like, so he had to make 50 shots. I was like, yeah. And I'm like, wait a minute. There's only 45. How long is a game? 45.
Yep. 40-something minutes. Yep.
So he had to be making a shot a minute.
He
had to make more than a shot a minute in order to make 100 points. Think about that. That's, and it wasn't no fancy cross up. But it was about, how can I get the bucket now that, girls that said,
he was tall. He was way taller.
It was 5'2", 5'3", but still.
Yeah, but we can't say that because
you can't.
Anthony Davis is taller than everybody on the East Coast, on the West Coast, East Coast, and he still don't dominate.
Exactly. But like you said, man, it's a lot of these guys, man, is about efficiency, right?
But that application to life, Rick.
Yeah,
that's what I was looking at. Yeah. That you don't have to be I don't have to be the guy that can explain quantum physics. No. Or the guy that know how the trajectory of a jet works and and get you to the moon. A lot of times that's what we place emphasis on, right? Yep. We place emphasis on, man, my kid is so smart. I'm sending him to the best school. That don't mean jack.
Nope.
If they don't know how to apply it.
Yep.
It's the application that really pays the bills.
Absolutely. And that's the biggest fear, man, for kids that are smart. I'm not going to go.
Can't hear you. You're not in the mic.
I'm not even going to go into. I was saying the biggest fear. I was fixing my printer. My printer was trying to print some labels for us. But I'm not going to get into it, man. Let's get into this guest.
Yeah.
Because this is another great one, guys. He is going to be. He's a radiologist, and he's going to be sharing his story from homeless to Hopkins. Stay tuned. Peace.
One love.
Thank you for listening to the Success Journey Show. Please follow us on our social media on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at The Success Journey Show. Also, check out our website at thesuccessjourneyshow.com. Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of the show.
All right, travelers, we are here at our favorite segment of this show, as we know every week, and we know everyone has been just waiting and dying to see who we had on our podcast this week. And we get to capture stories from amazing people from all around the world. And today we are blessed to be able to have Dr. Chris Smith with us, joining us on the Success Journey Show. Chris, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the Success Journey Show.
Thank you for having me here. Glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's our honor. And why don't you start off by just sharing with the world, our listeners, just a little bit about yourself. Let them know who you are.
Okay, perfect. So thank you. My name's Chris. I go by Chris. So Dr. Smith, but I'm a practicing physician. I did my residency and fellowship at Johns Hopkins. I actually stayed on as faculty for several years afterwards. But in my past, I actually was a former homeless teenager. I grew up homeless and in poverty. And I've actually become an author and kind of written that story down and talked a little about it, kind of trying to inspire people. I'm also a father of 5 daughters. So, and happily married. So,
oh man, awesome, man! You said a lot in just like 30 seconds, right?
Yeah. You said a lot.
Oh man, and I'm ready to kind of dive in. You said you wrote a book that kind of shared your story. Can you just tell us the title of that book again?
Yes, it's called Yes, thank you. It's called Homeless to Hopkins, and I have a regular version, and I actually wrote a children's version to help children as well. So it's Homeless to Hopkins.
Oh, I love it. Homeless to Hopkins. So if as you start talking about in your journey, you said, "Hey, man, I used to be homeless." Tell us about that. Like, what kind of brought you to that point? And then let's talk a little bit about the journey from there. And I'm assuming a lot of this is captured in your book as well.
It is correct. Thank you. Yeah. So my journey started actually from the time I was born. Basically, I was born. My dad he worked at a steel mill. I grew up in Utah. I'm the 6th of 11 children, so big family. And my father lost his job in a steel mill when I was about 4 years old. And after that, he struggled to maintain any kind of employment, and he had difficulty because of that. We had difficulty with finances. Pretty much most of my life, we were in poverty. And what that meant was we would be in a house and we'd be evicted very, very rapidly. So a house for like 3 months or so, get evicted. The number of houses I lived in by the time I was 16 was probably 24, like 20 to 24 different houses of evictions. And on top of that, growing up, we often lived without basic utilities, such as like electricity and gas for months at a time, not just weeks, but like months. So I actually grew up learning to study by candlelight, study my schoolwork by candlelight, and we cooked food over a fire. Like our food was cooked over a fire, and our bathwater as well. We warmed it up over a fireplace. And so what that meant is you always wanted to be the first person in the bathtub, not the last person, because you shared all the bathwater. Yeah. And so that was one thing. And then we grew up in your usual thing, lots of hot dogs, things like that. I learned to love ketchup, but ketchup, anything makes anything taste good. But also, we also slept in areas that weren't really designed for people to sleep in, such as partially finished garages or carports and things like that. And sometimes it actually got so cold in those areas. Like my brother had a fish tank, and it actually froze one night overnight when I was about 12 years old. And so that was most of my life. But then at 16, my family actually got evicted from our house, and we didn't have anywhere to go. So my senior year of high school, we were actually homeless the entire year. And what that meant was I actually slept in a car for my senior year of high school. So I'd sleep in a car overnight, and then I'd wake up and go to school afterwards. And it was difficult because I grew up in Utah, which actually gets really, really cold.
Yeah.
So, so sometimes I wake up, my hair would actually be frozen to the door or whatever. And, it was an interesting dynamic because on one hand, I was sleeping in a car, but on the other hand, I was still an honor student in high school and did student government and played sports. So I had this dichotomy because school was kind of all my safe space. So that's kind of the short version that has there's a lot more to it, but that's kind of the condensed brief version.
Wow, man. I mean, just to hear just the conditions and the circumstances that you had that were, I mean, they're none to your fault, right? I mean, this is just condition of life, right? That you had presented to you. And one thing I heard you say in that was, hey, even though this was my condition, my performance didn't suffer, right? He said, hey, I was an honor student in school, right? I played sports, where a lot of times, a lot of those things could be affected from individuals because of their lifestyle, things that are going on in the home or the lack, in the home. And I see it every day. I hear it every day. My wife, she's a school counselor, and she, just, her heart hurts sometimes just knowing some of the conditions these students are going through. And like, what gave you that, I don't know, that desire to still want to perform well? Was it that you were just, man, I'm just a brilliant person and this school is just super easy for me? Or, was it like, did you go to school with with wax on your books, from being under candlelight, Like,
yeah.
What was it, man?
It's a good question. So growing up, a couple of things. School was always my safe space. I loved school because school was there. It was always warm. The lights were on. And people in school believed in me. Teachers, you said your wife's a school teacher. Teachers are my heroes, honestly, because they do so much good for people. When I was in 5th grade, my teacher told me I'd be a doctor someday. And so those kind of little comments really inspired me. And then when I was in 11th grade, you asked about my performance. So in 11th grade, I decided I was done with school, typical teenage angst, kind of like my rebellion was I stopped turning my homework. Pretty sad rebellion, I know, but that was my rebellion. So I stopped turning my homework. So my AP history, my AP teacher, Mrs. Thompson, pulled me aside one day and said, hey, Chris, what's going on here? Your grades are dropping. This is not like you. And so I made a, typical teenage excuse, like I didn't get it. It was too hard or whatever. And she called me on it. She looked over her steel rim, English teacher, history teacher, steel rim glasses, the steely eye that can just pierce your soul. She looked over them and said, hey, Chris, you are full of it. You're one of the most brilliant kids in this class, and you can do better. And the person you're hurting is not anybody else but you.
Yourself.
Someday, your future self will regret if you don't achieve your potential. And that really woke me up. So for me, teachers along the way were very important for me. They believed in me. They kind of inspired me, encouraged me. And the other things, I read books. I read everything. I was a voracious reader. I read everything. And I read these stories of people that overcame these incredible obstacles to be a success. Abraham Lincoln growing up in a log cabin, or even fictional characters like Gandalf and Aragorn. I love the Lord of the Rings growing up. So I read these stories of these guys, Gandalf and Aragorn overcome these insurmountable odds. And so what those stories did is they inspired me and gave me hope, dream for something bigger. And those are kind of the things that inspired me. And with that, I just kept going. I just felt like school and education was really the only way for me to change my life, and not just my life, but my children's lives and, the future.
I always tell, Rick and I was talking this weekend. I told Rick that, not a lot of times, the limitation a child gets is from the adult. A child don't know the limitations, right? So if a kids grow up in a 1-bedroom, heating up his water, doing by candlelight, and he thinks that's the norm, you just excel in that environment because that's the norm. And then of course you're going to school, you're seeing the consistency of school. So that's probably something that you gravitate, that consistency of school. Now, what made you, some people, and I always try to figure this out. Some people, they just say, oh, this was my life, so that's why I'm not excelling. And then there's another person that says, because of this situation, it helped me to excel. What was it for you that clicked? I know the teacher. I had Mr. St. Bryce. He passed away. Rest his soul. He was one of the guys that told all the students in front of me, do not play around with Marlon in class, because for some reason he gets good grades and you guys don't.
Yeah.
That's what Mr. St. Bryce always told everybody. Do not talk, because I'm a person, Ricky knows me out, choir practice, everything. I'll be talking with everybody and they'll be like, I get kicked out of choir practice, all these different things I got kicked out of. But what was it for you that made you say, okay, I'm going to use this to actually propel myself versus use this as my crutch?
It's a good question. One thing that my father had some limitations. One thing my father always encouraged us was to try to do something like play sports or whatever. Even if we failed, it was okay. We tried. And so I grew up with this idea that, I don't know, I guess I didn't see myself as a limitation. I just saw the potential, I think, and that's the big difference, is I didn't see that my life was limited. Like you said, I was a kid. That was kind of normal for me, even though it's not normal for most of the world. And my deal was, I wanted to become, those people in the stories that overcame those challenges, that became a success despite what was going on in the world, and just that dream, that hope. I think I have to start with hope. You have to start with that little, measure of hope that starts with everything. And once you have that hope and it's in you, you just have to continue to feed it and not give up on that hope, regardless of if you fail or not fail, because you will fail along the way. That's part of the journey. And the point is, once you fail, though, you just don't give up. You just keep going and keep trying, and you try it again and try it again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Now, we're talking to we had somebody else on this podcast, Amy, and she was just talking about that it factor. Is it that you had the it factor, or, and I know it's a hard question to kind of pinpoint as a child, but that it factor, you have Michael Jordan. I like using him because that's my favorite. Yeah. He's in high school. He gets cut. That does something to him. He's playing in the backyard with his brother. His brother's beating him. That does something to him. He gets in college. They say you can't go left. That does something to him. And then it just, instead of just saying, well, man, I can't go left. What is that it factor? I don't know. What did you find within yourself, though? Just to say, me, I'm not going to let anything that's happening here happen to me. Were there times when you went to school and you, like you said, you woke up and your hair was stuck to the car and you knew that you're only on a carport, but you said, hey, when I get to school, I'm not going to let anybody know that. I'm going to actually be the best in class, or whatever the situation is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're perfect. Michael Jordan's, I love Michael Jordan. Fabulous guy. And when for example, when he got cut from the team, what did he do? He said, okay, that's fine. I'm going to work harder, become a success. And so that was my philosophy. When I didn't make it, I'd be like, okay, so what can I do to change that choice, change the outcome? What can I personally do? I didn't accept that as a limitation. I felt empowered that I could change, that I could do the change, regardless of how much work it took or how much effort. When I slept in the truck at night, I vowed to myself that someday I'd work as hard as I needed to become a success, so that my children would never have to go through what I went through. And that it factor, I don't know, it's just something inside you that you just have to have it there. And it just, regardless of how hard the wind blows, you push harder against it. Whatever it is, you just work harder to try to get through it. And like I said, you will fail. Like Michael Jordan, he got cut from the team, all these struggles, but he didn't quit. That's probably the biggest thing, is that consistency and not quitting when the times get difficult, because they will. It's not just if, it's when they will, and maintaining that strength and keep going. It's just it's a choice. It's a choice to continue to try, and we choose. We can do two choices. We can choose to give up, or we can choose to keep trying. And it's a sum of those small choices that eventually add up to where we end up in our lives down the road. It's those little small choices, getting up every day and going to school or to work or whatever it is you're doing, exercise and whatever you're working on.
Yes, sir.
I love how you're saying that, because people don't realize is that at some point in your life, you're going to get hit with a brick wall, right? And it's going to be that it factor, or that determination. Like we call it dream. What is it? Dream. We should add
dream, drive, discipline, diligence.
Dream, drive, discipline, diligence is our 4 Ds, right? We should add determination on there, right? But it's going to take that determination to go to that next step, like to push through, right? There's nothing that anyone has that is quote unquote successful or has fulfilled their potential that did not have to go through some type of resistance resistance training, I'll call it, right? Life resistance training. And because people like what it looks like on the other side of it, but for some reason in that middle ground there, it's tough to get through, right? And one thing I want to do with our listeners today is talk a little bit about just that, those moments where, hey, it doesn't look good, it doesn't look favorable for you, or it may be challenging, but this is what it looked like on the other side of that once I got through of it. Like, and one thing I want to talk to is in particular to you, because like even in your story, even around the circumstances that you had to deal with, on top of that was layered the level of execution and achievement that you went through for college, through your career as being a physician and things of that nature. I don't care what background you had. Just being able to get to that point right there is like, you gotta will it all a lot of times to get there. Talk about how you've believed that, just your upbringing, that fortitude around us, that drive, and just, that it factor, that determination helped you get through those periods of, hey, transitioning through med school, going through your residency, just going through that medical route. And why did you pick medicine to be an area in which you want to focus on?
So, yeah, thank you. So a couple things. When I was in college, so after I graduated high school, I got a scholarship to college. But shortly after I graduated, my father was actually arrested because we were living in a hotel. My father was arrested, and my mother actually was admitted to a mental health facility because she tried to take her own life. And at 17, I was then on my own. So at 17, I was so thankfully I had an older sister that I called up, and she let me stay on her couch, and I slept with her. Otherwise, I wouldn't be on the streets. But that first year of college, I had my scholarship, but I ended up losing my scholarship because I worked full time. I took like 18 credits a semester, which is way too much. And I ended up with a 3.45 GPA. You needed to have a 3.5 GPA to maintain the scholarship.
Yeah.
It was 0.05. And so it was that point I briefly gave up, kind of like I wallowed a little bit self-pity, did a little self-medication. But then when I woke up one day, I was like, I want more than this in life. I don't want to be in some drunken hole or whatever, I want more in life. And so I woke up and I made the decision that at that point I was going to go serve a religious mission in the Southern California, in the kind of the rough neighborhoods, the Spanish neighborhoods in Southern California. And so I went there for 2 years and worked a lot with gang members and things like that, kids in gangs and stuff like that, and really, really pretty rough neighborhoods. I saw a couple of drive-by shootings, up close and personal, and like maybe 50 feet away or less. So, so that's what 2 years. And what happened though is I found out it changed my perspective on life. I went from being a victim mentality to empowered. And the reason why I did that is because we interact with these people. They're very, very poor and humble, but they were amazing people. The Latino population in Southern California, they were so kind. They would give whatever they had, they would share with us. Their meals, even though they didn't really have much food, they would still make us a meal and we'd share with them. They gave of their substances. And that changed my perspective. It showed me there are a lot of amazing, wonderful, good people in this world, that regardless of the situation you're in, you can choose to be happy and you can choose to do good in the world despite being in difficult circumstances. And so after that, I went back to college and I paid for myself this time with grants and work. And I met my wife and got married. And once I met my wife, I felt complete. Before that, I felt kind of broken. And so then I renewed and I went back to college and actually graduated with high honors, and I applied to University of Utah. And the thing that I did in medical school that made a difference is I actually tried to choose the hardest classes possible. I know most people don't do that, but so there are different classes you can take. I picked the most difficult, challenging one because I wanted to be the best that I could be, not better than anybody else, but best that I could be. And so by the end of medical school, I graduated with honors, high honors, which is the Alpha Omega Alpha Medical Society, which is the honor school. Anyway, I graduated because I had that drive to succeed. And more importantly, I also tried to maintain balance in my life. So I made the decision not to study on Sundays. And so what I did instead is I would spend time with my wife and kind of renew and, things like that. And a lot of people in med school thought I was kind of crazy because like, how can you do that? Right. Med school is extremely intense, right? And they're like, you're going to fail, but actually I ended up graduating top of the class. So I think I maintained that balance. I think it's important to have that balance regardless of what you're doing in your life. those people that support you. And so then I applied to Johns Hopkins, and Hopkins is a very, I know you're an alumnus of Hopkins, so it's a great institution. And to get into my particular specialty had less than a 1% chance, meaning literally there were 800 people applying for 6 positions, literally less than 1% chance. And so I still went for it. If I don't get it, great, that's fine. But I still tried. I figured if you only, it's like who's Wayne Gretzky said, you miss 100% chance of the shots you don't take.
Yes. So
I applied, and for some reason, divine intervention or whatever you want to call it, I was able to be accepted into Hopkins. So I know that was like a long-winded answer to your question.
No,
so I'm sorry.
No, that's what I'm glad.
No. It's not.
So
yeah.
So I would say. So what I say is, I know that I didn't do it on my own. I know I didn't. I know there were people along the way who helped me, teachers or my wife, or if you believe in God, or divine intervention, that I think there's some of that involved as well. Kind of this plan for my life to do my life, and then it's up to us to do our part to do the work.
Correct.
Yes.
We're big believers.
Chris, you hit a nail on the head, because this weekend, I don't know, for some reason, I don't know if it's just my timeline or everybody's timeline. I think it's Les Brown who's talking about God gives you the vision, but not the plan. And the reason why he doesn't give you the plan is because if he told you, in order to become a doctor, graduate from Johns Hopkins with all this prestigious stuff, you'd have to be homeless, go to 24 different houses. You'd have to sleep in a car and have your hair stuck on the thing. You'd have to go through your self-medication process. You'd have to sleep on your sister's couch. You'd have to do all these different things. And he showed you that from the plan, but he still showed you the vision. You'd be like, I kind of don't want to.
I don't know if I want to do all that.
I kind of don't want to do all that.
Yeah, you'd be like, I don't know. That seems like, I don't know, a lot of work, right?
A lot of work. I definitely don't want to do all that. Let's just get to the vision. Let's just get to the ending result, right? So going through that, and now you have kids. I'm going to talk about that aspect. How do you approach? Because also it says, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't know, I don't want to misquote it. It says, strong men make easy times make weak men make strong time, harder times again. So it's a cyclical event if we don't tailor how we our behaviors, right? So how do you approach it with your kids? And now that you're in a better position, you're not getting evicted, you're not doing all the stuff that you had that helped you, hardened you, that helped you. What do you do as a father to propel your kids or keep your kids within that straight and narrow lane?
That's a good question. Still learning how to do that, I think, but I think it's a process, but but I think one thing I still try to instill my kids is education. I tell them, your inheritance from me is going to be an education. So I tell, okay, you go to college, I'm going to pay for you to get through college, and that's your inheritance. See, my idea is to teach them, not to just give them the fish, but to teach them how to fish for themselves. I've always instilled them education is very, very important. So they all want to go, further education and things like that. And I also encourage them to try things. It's not about achieving, it's about trying. It's about the process of doing things, not necessarily achieving. Achieving is great, but it's the process of actually going through and just trying something that you don't know how to do, or just trying, that work. Putting in the work is the important part. And kind of instilling in them that idea. We don't necessarily, we have expectations, they have chores and things like that around the house, kind of expectations. But I think my thing with my children is I try to instill them. Also, the other thing I try to instill them is that regardless of who they are, what they become, it doesn't mean they're better than anybody else, regardless. And those things that when you reach success, whatever, you should try to help others and lift them up to be a success too, not put them down. And to try to see everybody as a brother and sister in this world, regardless of where they're from, whatever. And one thing that I have done with them is, like, if I see like a homeless person sitting in front of the store or something, I'll go in the store and I'll buy like a bottle of water or a sandwich and just give it to them on the way out and say, hey, take this from me. And just to try to show, and I'll talk to them, because they're people. They're just people that are in a bad situation. And to teach my children that regardless of where you come from, whatever, we're all just people in this world, and the importance of seeing each other that way, seeing each other as just brothers and sisters in this world. And that's one of the biggest things I want to instill in my children, is that regardless of who they become, whatever success they have, it doesn't matter if you lose the part of yourself, the humanity that you have, that you always still should keep that humanity and share with others and help lift them too.
Yeah, that's so important, man. Having that grounding, because like Marlon said, one thing that we lose sight of often is the element of how do you teach the next generation, give them the values that they need in order to be successful and be contributors to society, when a lot of the things that drove us as adults to do that are from the struggles that we've had in our past, right? That mold us. And I know every level there's something else, and different levels to challenges and things of that nature. And as you said, and echoing what you said, is like, hey, I want to make sure I'm showing and demonstrating what it means to take care of people, that we are all the same, no matter, you got this education or that education, you got this degree, that degree, you got this job, or have this amount of money, or drive this car versus them driving that car, or not having a car. That we're all people, right? And we all should be considered and thought highly of. And I commend you on just having those conversations with your kids, and that's something I definitely hold true to as well. As I do say, though, sometimes I do struggle, and I look at the things that my kids have, and I'm like, what the heck? Why in the world? I used to have to request to go inside the refrigerator, like put a request form, sign it. I got my hours. I was like, you can open the refrigerator at 2:36, and you better be closed at 2:36.5 millisecond. Like, it's one of those.
Or like my kids ask, like what our dishwasher was like. I'm like, you're looking at the dishwasher, right?
Yeah,
we didn't have a dishwasher.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct. And what's funny? Talk about dishwashers. My aunt ended up having a dishwasher, but the dishwashers. Remember the dishwashers back in the day?
Never used.
No, it couldn't even wash the plates good. They didn't have it. They didn't figure out. It was later on that they came that you didn't have to rinse your plate off totally clean, then put it in the dishwasher.
Yeah, you had to wash your dish before you put it in the dishwasher.
So it didn't make sense to even put it in the dishwasher because you had to wash it anyway. I always was like, this doesn't make sense. You have a dishwasher, but I got to wash it fully. And the pots and pans going to go in there anyway. It's only recently.
Yeah.
I'm convinced. I don't know if my parents knew if it can wash well or not. They just knew they had 6 of them in the house that can wash well. So they just went with that option. But yeah, Chris, they so as you were, you have this book, From Homeless to Hopkins, right? And what inspired you to actually put your story to pen and paper, and share that with the world?
Yeah, perfect. So for a while there, I didn't really share with anybody because I was afraid I'd be judged from my past growing up. But eventually I realized that, so I spoke at a couple of youth groups, and the youth were so responsive to what I shared that I realized as I share my story with others, I can inspire them to achieve their dreams. And so ultimately that was the reason why I wrote it, is because when I was a kid, I used to read stories about these people. So I wanted to write a story that any kid could pick up somewhere, anybody struggling, be like, I'm struggling right now, but this, I can do something with my life. Here's this guy, he was a homeless, now he's a doctor, so the idea kind of inspiring them. Actually, what I really want to do is take some of the proceeds, what I'm planning on doing is taking some of the proceeds, actually creating a scholarship for kids that are like me to help them get to school, so just giving it back. And the biggest reason for my book was try to inspire others just to overcome their own challenges, whatever they're going through.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I'll tell you, just like you said, I didn't read The Lord of the Rings. I only watched it. The books, when I saw the books and I saw the thing, I was like,
Too many pages.
I was like, I'll wait till the movie come out, right? And finally it did. So stories are very important. And when you put your stories in, do you see the human side to your stories? Meaning, not just, hey, I was raised up and, I was just great in school and I went and I became a doctor and the end. You're actually showing the struggles. It changes something. Now, how do you feel when you're in a room, right? Everybody's talking about somebody that's less fortunate, or they're talking about situations that's happening outside, like you said, in these communities and everything. And they don't really know your story. That person don't really know your story. And they're just thinking like, hey, Dr. Smith, he probably just came through a great situation while he's here. How do you approach those people and help them to understand, like, listen, I know because some people live in a world that they don't even understand what you went through or couldn't even fathom what you went through. How would you sit that person down and say, listen, I know you see this person and they're breaking the law. They're doing this. They're doing all these different things. They're in this situation, whatever is happening in those communities. How would you explain to them that, just like you said, those people are still good people? How do you approach those people?
That's a great question. So I would just kind of share a little bit of my story. Say, yes, I'm a doctor now, but I wasn't always this way. I was a kid sleeping in a truck at 16, on my own at 17, and I understand the struggle, the challenges, the feelings, that feeling of loneliness and desperation and just feeling like nobody cares, the brokenness, and just kind of share, my actual feelings. Say, yeah, they're struggling right now, but it's okay. Look at their potential. And maybe share some other people like Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey's also another one of my heroes on Oprah. Steve's amazing. The stuff he's overcome, what he does now with his foundation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so those kind of people, like Steve Harvey, or even like somebody like Chris Pratt, right? Chris Pratt was homeless in Hawaii before he became a movie star. These people that, we see them now, but like, hey, 20 years ago, you would have walked right past them or ignored them or whatever, but now they're these people, So just kind of sit down with them, explain to, just because somebody's there. And also the fact that none of us are actually very far from that ourselves. A job loss or some change in circumstances, we get sick or whatever. It'd be very easy for us to fall into difficult financial times or whatever.
Yeah. It's funny. I was in this was in Afghanistan. This is crazy. So I was doing an ethics class in Afghanistan, right? I had to lead an ethics class in Afghanistan. And I gave people a scenario because everybody looks at everybody, especially, those countries. They don't understand. A lot of times us from the States don't understand what's going on, the geopolitical side of everything that's happening on over there. But I gave them something to bring it home. I said, okay, picture you're in the circumstance where you don't have a house. You're homeless, don't have a job. You have 2 kids and they're hungry, and you see you're at a store. You can't buy the food, but your kids are that's like the limit. You done warped the limit where you could go hungry for a certain amount of days, but you could just drink water to survive. But you wore out that hunger time. What would you do?
Yeah, put somebody else in somebody else's shoes. That's the key, I think, to try to understand, to try to have that empathy, regardless of where we're from or what we're going through, just to see people as ourselves, to see that you and I are the same. There's really nothing, just regardless of where you're from, race, creed, religion, whatever, we're all the same. It doesn't matter, it's just, and just to see people as ourselves and to try to put ourselves in those people's shoes, I think is really important. You talk about Afghanistan. I was in Kosovo. So in Kosovo, I used to, the people would come clean the hospital. I would try to talk to them and learn a little bit of their language so I could say hi. It was, to say hi to them in their own language and talk to them. And they thought it was really cool that I actually would take the time to, acknowledge them. There's somebody come, cleaning the hospital. I'm like, hey, good morning and stuff like that. And just seeing them as a person, just something simple like that makes a huge difference.
You're absolutely right. I don't know on that part of the world. I'd say, hey, Salem and they would start talking to me in Arabic. I'm like, Salem, and then they'll be like, they talk. I'm like, hey, no, I don't know your language. I'm just, and they're like, oh, I thought you were Afghani. I'm like, what? I look Afghani. So they definitely appreciate when you could I wouldn't say come down to your level. Just show the humanistic part of what you are, and just show them, hey, I'm just like you, and that opens up that breaks down the barrier, and you're able to implement some. I know before we in the green room we were talking about you were in the army the Army Reserve. Were you there as a medic?
I was a physician actually. One is a medical personnel. So
that's where you end up in the different countries. Do you have any stories about that? How was your experience in that factor, being medical in all these different situations?
It was fabulous, because one of the things we did in the military is we'd go set up. We do like medical, like almost like a medical mission. We set up in a little small town and we just provide free medical care. The U.S. Army free medical care to the citizens of that area. So in Kosovo, I went to some little tiny town far away that Americans probably have not been in for a long time, and we just set up and we just did free medical dental care and just took care of the people, and they were very, very appreciative, and just so that was an amazing experience to me, to treat these kids whomever, that give them antibiotics and treat them, these infections and things like that they'd never been treated for, and be able to make a difference in their lives, and just serving them, being able to serve them. I think a lot of that gets lost as far as what the military does. We do a lot of actually very positive things out in the world, building up other countries and serving them.
Yep. Quantum imaging. I don't know if I'm jumping, Rick, away from anything that you wanted to. Yeah. Quantum imaging. Now you're gonna have to explain this to our listeners. Quantum imaging and therapeutics, right?
Yes.
Explain that aspect of what you do to people for your profession and stuff like that.
Okay, perfect. So I'm a physician. I specialize in radiology, diagnostic radiology. So what that means is we use imaging, including X-rays and theoretically quantum mechanics, some things like that, to image people to figure out what disease is going on. So, for example, if somebody's thinking they're having a stroke, they'll go get an MRI done, and the physician you talk to, like in the ER, is not the physician who interprets the studies. It's actually the radiologist, who you'll probably never meet, but they're the ones who make the diagnosis. And so that's what I do. So we use imaging, ionization, whatever you want to call it, X-rays. MRI doesn't have radiation, or ultrasounds, and to diagnose disease.
Whoa. So MRI does not have radiation?
No, it doesn't at all. It's just magnetic fields, actually. It's a shifting magnetic field. So it's a huge magnet. You put some in, and if you really want to know, basically you briefly magnetize their protons, which is their to be in the same sequence, and then you release that, and as the protons, what's called the basically despin, depolarize, it gives us a little signal based on the type of tissue it's in, and we can detect that with our technology. So it's actually pretty Star Trek-y, you might want to say. It's pretty. Yeah. It's amazing, because you can literally, now they're actually starting what's called functional MRI, where they actually have somebody in MRI and they ask them a question, they image their brain, and parts of their brain light up, whatever they're asking them the question. And so they're actually trying to map the brain that way, kind of the pathways of the brain, how it works. So that's one part of what we do. So
now you're bringing me down a rabbit hole now. Now, two things. Sorry, Rick.
No, you're good.
I'm two things. So for medical military guys, if you're listening to this, do not let them tell you the reason why you cannot get an MRI is because you can't have a certain amount of radiation within a year. So that's why they limit your MRI. Let them know that MRIs are not radiation. I'm going to use.
They're not at all. The only thing is you have to be careful if they have some type of metal in them. They have to be careful of that, because the magnet, or like shrapnel or something like that. Then you have to be careful. But
okay. So we covered that. Metal. So that's a myth buster from a doctor, medical, and you're the medical doctor. Remember, you guys, I don't want to put you in trouble with nobody, sir. But I'm telling you guys, do not let them tell you, if you don't have any shrapnel and any hardware in your body, that MRI, there's only a certain limited amount of MRIs you could do for the year because it's radiation. That's what I got told, right? Because I have
there's no radiation whatsoever with MRIs. There's none. So.
All right. Hey, you heard it here. Success Journey Show. Now, the second one is, you're talking about the light up of the brain and all that kind of stuff in the MRI. Now you hear Elon Musk saying that he wants to be able to put a chip in to give you telepathy. I can't even say the word. Telepathic abilities or whatever. I don't know if you're tracking that. How real is that? How much of that you think can really happen? I don't know if that's your areas of expertise, but I'm just asking you, how much of that do you think that could really happen?
I have no idea, honestly. But I mean, if Elon Musk can come up with if anybody can come up with a solution to do it, it'd be somebody like Elon Musk. The guy's brilliant. But I have no idea if that's possible or not. I do know they do cochlear implants for hearing, where you actually do a device here, and then it plugs into your inner ear, and so people that are deaf can actually hear that way. And they're starting to do some retinal ones as well with the eyes, where they plug it in and they can actually see based on that. So it's kind of getting there, but a different way. Do you know what I mean? Not like overall, like not telepathy, but just to allow people who don't have those senses to have those senses again. So maybe someday in the future we'll have this telepathic ability or whatever. 20 years ago, who would have thought Bluetooth, right? All that stuff would have been like magic, right? So who knows? I have no idea.
Yeah,
it's fascinating. Fascinating idea, though.
The world of medicine is so right now. I'm in Well, I won't say. I don't know how much trouble I'll get if I use, but I'll just say the world of medicine. You have guys that's trying to actually make people that's paralyzed walk again, and they're like right there. They're going from the rat stage. I think this year they'll be going to the human stage where they'll be trying it on humans. So they came and talked to us about some different stuff. I don't know if you're tracking that.
Like the regenerative medicine type stuff. Yeah, that's fascinating. Like using growth factors and growth cells, human growth to be able to grow things back, and that's actually the future of medicine. For example, if somebody has a heart attack, rather than just put a pacemaker in, you actually try to regrow the heart tissue that was damaged. Or they have a leg injury, you try to regrow the tissue. That's the idea. To take it to that level. That is the future.
It's crazy. 3D printing blood, right? It's different now, man.
3D printing blood and organs. I've saw something like printing these 3D printing of like a organ, like a skeleton, basically, and then they grow the cells on and stuff like that. And it's like, how cool is that? If it actually, eventually when it works, So
yeah.
Ricky, go ahead. I'm sorry. I know I'm not a doctor. I kind of nerded out just a little bit.
I love it. It's as you're in your practice now and in things that you're seeing and doing, what are some, when you look at technology, what are some of the challenges you see or benefits that you see as technology is playing into what you're doing every day?
Well, I think one of the challenges, number one, is cost. As new technologies gets developed, it can be very expensive, especially drugs, whatever technology. It's very expensive, and part of that's profit, part of that's just the time it takes to develop, because to get something approved by the FDA is a huge process, like 10-year process, a lot of money, a lot of research and time, and so cost is very prohibitive, I think, for people. And as we get these new technologies, the idea of being able to allow people to benefit from those technologies at a reasonable cost, I think, is a challenge in today's world. The kind of dynamic that's always in flux of where to do with it. And then number two is, as far as like the regenerative technology, stuff like that, the question is, how far do we take it? I don't know. That's one of those ethics questions that, I don't know, that's, But as far as like currently, I think the big challenge today is trying to provide good quality medical care at a reasonable price that, provide care for everybody, but also have it be affordable for everybody too. I think that's a very difficult challenge right now for the world, for us in the US anyway.
How did things shift for you during pandemic, like post-pandemic now? Like how do things change from your perspective?
For the pandemic, believe it or not, I'm one of the younger people in my practice. Medical people end up working in their 70s. It takes so long to become a physician. It took me 14 years after college. So anyway, when COVID first started, I actually was in the hospital pretty much for months straight working, and the older guys would work from home remotely. But so since then, one thing that happened is actually now I work remotely. I moved from Pennsylvania to Florida, and I live in Florida by the beach. And I do all my practice in medicine remotely through my computer, because somebody gets an imaging done like in Pennsylvania, I can literally look at it on my computer within minutes of it being done and look at the images because of the technology. And that was one benefit from COVID, the ability to work more remotely, and like telemedicine. Telemedicine became a lot more common.
Gotcha. Yeah. Telemedicine actually took off through COVID, because I know people were playing around with it before loosely, but I mean, even intimate, I know oncologists, a lot of people are plastic surgeons are using telemedicine as something you would have never thought that you would use it for, right? Because just how personal, what people thought a doctor visit or an appointment should be, right? It just really changed the game of service for us.
And one thing with telemedicine actually is increased accessibility for healthcare in general, I think, because now it's so much easier to see a specialist or something. Just you get on the computer, Zoom, or whatever, you can talk to, whomever, an allergist at Johns Hopkins, remotely, whatever, So
yeah.
And
that, I think.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say touching and feeling in terms of being a doctor and telemedicine. What is the difference to you in terms of breaking somebody down or giving a diagnosis? Is it the same? Is there benefits?
So certain diagnoses, they're much better to be given in person. Like, for example, if somebody just was newly diagnosed for cancer or something like that, it's much better to do that in a face-to-face interaction than remotely in telemedicine. And certain procedures obviously have to be person to person. Like one thing radiologists we do a lot of a mammography and things like that. And while some of those women end up getting biopsied, that obviously has to be in person. And having that discussion face to face is very important for people, because I still think that human connection is really, really important, especially in medicine. To have that connection, especially when you're going through a difficult time, whether it's like a cancer treatment or whatever, that having that personal connection, I think, is still really important in medicine, because ultimately that's who we are, taking care of people. So
yeah. What part of Florida are you?
I'm in Destin, kind of the Panhandle.
Oh, I know Destin. There's nice beaches down there.
Yeah, it's a great beach.
So what I heard is that you're inviting Ricky and I down there.
About that. Yeah.
Sure, you want to come down? You're welcome. Yeah, come on down. I'm about 5-minute walk to the beach. So
we'll be your secretaries. We'll take some calls for you, and
exactly.
that's how we'll get down there.
Drinks,
we'll take some calls and answer some emails.
Yeah,
sounds great. Yeah, it's a wonderful beach. It's a beautiful white sand beach. The water's like beautiful, bluish, beautiful water. And it's great for families because kids can walk out pretty far out on the beach without it dropping off significantly. So they can, play in the water and stuff without as much risk. So anyway, it's a wonderful area. So,
man. Well, as we come to more of the conclusion of the show here, if you had a moment to go back in a time of your life, and I would say even probably around your that 11th grade year when you felt that, hey, you know what, I'm done. I've given up in high school, right? And you had 60 seconds to just sit yourself down in a lunchroom, cafeteria, whatever it may be, and just say, hey, man, I just want to share a couple words with you. What would you say to that 16, 17-year-old Chris Smith?
I would say, right now life is tough, and it's tough. But someday you're going to have an amazing, beautiful life. You just take that leap and you just jump. I did bungee jumping when I was a kid. So one of the things I did is, sometimes you just you lean over and then you let go, and you hope for the best. You're going to fall, but that ride up is going to be amazing. So I think the idea is, life's tough now, but someday you can have an amazing, beautiful life. If you work hard and just believe and you do your 4 Ds, like you guys said, you can have an amazing life, right? Just believe, have that hope, believe, and don't quit.
Man, I hope Marlon heard that one, man. The ride up is going to be amazing. You're going to fall down, Marlon.
Yeah, when we're going to jump, Rick. We're gonna jump.
We're ready this summer, man. This summer. This
we got to jump out of a plane, Chris.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. So Rick is kind of
a little nervous. He got a little nervous. So I'm glad that you mentioned you mentioned that word of encouragement to him, man. And he's a Marine and all that. So it's.
Oh yeah.
Don't believe him, Chris. He's a civilian. He's lying.
Well, Chris, man, it's been great. Connecting with you today. Before we leave, I wanted you to give our travelers and listeners around the world just an opportunity to check in with you. I know you have a website, things of that nature. Can you share that information with our listeners so they can come follow you and follow your journey?
Absolutely. So I'm on Instagram, Homeless to Hopkins. You can look on Instagram. I made it easy for people to follow. My website's homeless-to-hopkins.com. And if they want to email me, my email is homeless-to-hopkins@gmail.com. Pretty easy email. Very easy. So
made it simple.
And the book, if they want to find the book, it's available in Audible format. And someone would like to read it on time, or regular Kindle or electron or print version. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever they want to look for it. So
love it. Well, travelers, man, we come to the end of another show. We want to thank you guys for joining us again for another episode of the Success Journey Show. Hey, don't forget to check us out at thesuccessjourneyshow.com for all of our previous shows that we've had, or go to any listening platform, leave a review, leave a comment on YouTube's, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And we'll see you guys next week at the same place on the Success Journey Show. Everyone have a good one. Peace.
One love.
You've been listening to The Success Journey Show, where your dreams, drive, determination, and diligence are the foundation to success. For more information, check out thesuccessjourneyshow.com. The Journey Squad is here helping you to your destination.